Good morning and welcome to the new edition of Dr. Lamba's Awakening Call. COVID has impacted human beings, but it has impacted institutions as well. And the most impacted institution is United Nations. Established at the end of the Second World War, the purpose was to ensure peace, prosperity, health, happiness, development of all the nations, and the stronger richer nations committed to enable the poorer, the have-nots, come up to a certain minimum level. Naturally, self-interest is the most important interest, but yet the people who had this idea of United Nations had an altruistic motive. Real Christians, real human beings, they thought that the world wars would come to an end if there is a mechanism to solve the issue. If all the countries have a bare standard of minimum with all the possible health facilities, where infant mortality is low, where education is prevalent, where sanitation is there, where infrastructure is developed, people would be more concerned with the value of life and would not be covetous, greedy. The governments would be more dedicated to the good of the people and not be ambitious to go and fight over the issues that may not be relevant. But then, did that happen? Within a couple of years of its formation, we saw a war take place, the Korean War. And since that time, not a year has passed when conflict of one or the other nature did not take place. And it was seen that UNO in the beginning was a handmaiden of USA. And then recently it became a handmaiden of China. This metamorphosis was exemplified recently when COVID hit the world. And the people started thinking, do we really need it? Is it sufficient to have UNO with its mindset? Or should it be reformed to make it better equipped to address the 21st and 22nd century issues and the problems? As a matter of fact, United Nations does next what it does next would determine whether it should be there as well or not. For much of its time, USO has been dictating and now it's withdrawing. But the UN consistently provided hope for a better life through specialized agencies and organizations that play a vital role. But then we found that the role started declining, not only the world events, but even the governments. Once the words moderator and arbitrator, it became too constrained by old doctrines to be truly effective. Collaborative, globally governing co-founders and individuals. It no longer instills respect among the people. It no longer has international legitimacy, international law, maintenance of security, as it did after the World War II and especially after the collapse of the Russian system. Put simply, the world has changed and the UN has failed to keep up with the turbocharged political, economic, and cultural fluidity That has exposed this organization, and there are no people left to defend it. Most of the agencies are useless. For example, it's such a white elephant that sometimes we feel, is it worth having? Imagine what's the significance of ESAFA, the Commission for Economic Commission for Asia and Far East. Today, Far East is much more developed than it was when the commission was set up. It has outlived its utility, and yet we are spending $240 billion every year on that. UN Commission for India and Pakistan, which was set up in 1948 after the first Kashmir War, Indo-Pak War, when Pakistan invaded India. Again, has outlived its utility. Based in Delhi and Karachi, is nowhere in Kashmir. Government of India doesn't permit it, and Pakistanis don't like it. So why are we spending about $5 billion a year on this useless organization? And then examples can be multiplied, manifold. And we find that at least 40% of the agencies and organizations, which cost about $1,200 billion, are useless, wastage of the taxpayers' money. Now, we have got to see whether UN should be consigned to the dustbin, and if the past is any guide, then that's the best option. But then some people have an axe to grind and they would like UNO to be there. So the best thing would be to usher in a significant change. And that means new and more significant, diverse governance, international governance, which is no longer driven by one country's political values. Look at the most important organ, the Security Council. 5 permanent members who have a right to say no to anything. And some of the members at least have no role to play in the international fora. UK. It once was ruling the world, not today. USA, China, Russia I can accept. But neither France nor UK have any significant role to play. As a matter of fact, these need to be replaced by India, Brazil, and South Africa. These are the economic giants. These are hugely populated countries which have no representation. And imagine how lopsided the organization is. I, and you know it. It may not be possible to replace the permanent members. So why not add to them? But it has not been done, though there has been a cry for it for the last 6 years, and nothing was done. Now we have seen this coronavirus has revealed that so-called international solidarity has failed miserably. And it has also failed to protect the interests of those people who control it, the clique. The cabal that controls UNO has also failed to protect their own interests. And then, once the specter of coronavirus is over, as happens, there'll be inquiries, there'll be inquests, there'll be finger pointing, and people will like to change. There'll be a new appreciation, renewed appreciation of the collective community that we had tried hard to build. Still, this period of reckoning will be difficult for UN. The UN will have to abandon the present policies and move in the directions which may not be comfortable. For example, as I said, bodies like UNESCO will need to demonstrate more clearly their capability to go ahead with IR4, the gig economy, the circular economy, education, science, and culture stand changed under the new system or the new environment. The post pandemic recovery would necessitate UNESCO leaders to ask themselves what are they doing to preserve cultural values? How can you protect the right to education? How can you lead the scientific collaboration to prevent another pandemic? Should there be more regional diversification that serves all the member states? Does our leadership reflect that? Only such successful challenges would enable UNESCO and UN agencies to be really useful and live up to the purpose they were set up for. Now, as I said earlier, 40% of agencies need to be abolished absolutely, absolutely without a second thought. The wasteful expenditure in having extra luxurious life to the employees must come to an end. And the reforms of the UN should start at the top, as I said earlier, just now. The veto wielding power commensurate with the bygone era, not today. So, what do we do? China, France, Russia, UK, USA, they have much more power than they deserve to have. And no representation, as I said earlier, either from Middle East or from Latin America or from Africa. So there is no equitability and the decision making is lopsided. The most populous country, as I said in this world, Japan, the third largest economy of the world, South Africa, Nigeria, the largest economy, the fastest growing population in Africa, they have been neglected. So the citizens of the country should get preference in the jobs in those agencies where they are set up. I was astonished when I was very young. I happened to visit UNESCO in India, and I found that most of the Indians were working either as janitors or as clerks. I was shocked. The same Indians who were ruling are at the highest position in other agencies in other countries were not there in their own country. They were conspicuous by their absence. And that shows basically an absolute abject ignorance of the facts of life. You say much more if you hire the local people. So the change has to be dramatic. It has to be with the basic structure of the United Nations. It has to be with the objective of the United Nations. It has to be with the aims of the United Nations and the agencies of the United Nations. The proliferation, the exploding increase in manpower is not helpful. We used to talk a lot about the peace missions, and we found to our horror that the peace missions were an abject failure. In Congo, for example, when Katanga became independent, Patrice Lumumba was murdered, civil war took place, they went sending peace mission. And the number of the women raped by the peace commission members was really astonishing, really astonishing. But the guilty were never punished. As a matter of fact, the guilty were lionized. And the UNO awarded them merits and the medals. And the countries which contributed their contingents, including India, the Indian army officers were and the Jawans were really involved in this horrible crime, as were the others. But did anybody punish them? How many court martials were held? How many Nuremberg trials were held? No, not a single one. So you need to change the system. It is not bad to have United Nations. It's bad to have a United Nations of this nature. And today, coronavirus has given an opportunity to rethink, reevaluate, restructure. So reevaluation and restructuring is a need. And any further delay would only make the rot worse. It is already dying. Do you want it to die and lie in a coma and never to be buried, even unsung, unhonored, unwept? It's better to close it down than to keep on let it living. It needs actually a mercy killing. Let's wind it up. And if we still won't need it, let's reevaluate it, reorient it, re-engineer it, restructure it. That's the way to go. But are the world leaders listening? They should, because that's the way they will make a lasting contribution to the welfare of the world. That is to be their commitment. Thank you.